Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. It's been a while since I said it in that specific order. We haven't had the regular timing in our schedule for a while. Why? Because Jean-Luc was at a conference for a few weeks, and last week we had D-Rock, so we had a special scheduling for that one.
And there was
Uh,
a airport episode.
there was an
So
airport episode. So a lot happened in March. And yeah, but I gotta say, welcome back, Jean-Luc. We promised in a few episodes ago we were gonna unpack your experience during the conference. I think that's something we can cover a bit tonight. And yeah, what else do you got?
I think to get the regular programming back, we're gonna play a trick for the next couple of weeks to make sure that the program is at 9 p.m. local time on the Tuesday. So I think this is an interesting thing as well. We're gonna change up the format, not drastically, but a bit. We're gonna work out a type of sponsorship as well. So there's a lot to unpack. What's going to happen the next month? Oh yeah, and I'm going to write a book.
All right. We'll touch on that book in a bit because aside from the amazing connection, the experience, you got a lot out of that a conference. So let's start with that. So social media marketing world, I think this is the fourth time
Fifth
you've
time.
been at
Fifth
fifth
time.
time you've been
Yeah.
attending, and this time, fortunately, you were able to go in person again. We've kind of touched on this during the airport episode. Uh, not as many people as last time you said, but yeah, people are getting used to physical events again, and I think that's something that definitely stems positively for our social media conference here. So what are key takeaways you took from that international experience to bring back home uh, for
So are
the
you
conference
talking
this year?
about the conference itself, or
Yeah,
are you
let's start with
talking?
the conference
Okay, the
itself, and
conference
then
itself. Okay.
just perspectives or things that you see in a different light, maybe.
So basically, the thing that makes the conference special is, and I think it's more about the community vibe. Sometimes it's not true, and this is the question that I get wrong at training every year. So you have to understand, like conferences like these have a training program. Like you volunteer, but you also have a training program which you have to finish before the conference starts. And this training
This
program,
training is only for the volunteers, right?
it's for the volunteers, and basically there's a culture, and you have to represent the culture. And if you don't represent the culture, you don't get a call back to volunteer the next year. And I mean, it's not really that difficult of a test. I usually get one question wrong every year, and it's basically the same question. Because the first of all, the reason why I started attending the conference is because of the content. Like the most renowned speakers of the world speak at that conference, like social media wise. The big names, especially the new names, and they spend a lot of time making sure that they have an influx of speakers about new topics as well. Because what you get when you had speakers, I know a couple of speakers who have spoken at least 5 or 6 times at the social media marketing world, and they reach their peak around the fourth year, fifth year, maybe, and then it starts to dwindle down. Unless they're really good A-list speakers that can navigate themselves to a smaller crowd and keep engaged, or have such a big audience that their rooms continue to be full. But at
With reaching their peak, do you mean, yeah, like
the peak as
not the,
the full room that everybody's like, listen, this person needs to get a keynote because this room is too small. I mean, we have it in Suriname as well.
yeah,
We've
yeah.
had speakers that at a certain point, people were like, these rooms are too small. We need them in a bigger room. And that's what you get at social media marketing world as well. The first time I went to John Loomer is a great example. That was in 2014. He was booked into a small room. And I think the small room had a capacity of, we're talking about a small room, but it has a capacity of at least 100 people. But that session, people were standing up against the walls and sitting on the floor. Basically, it was like the fire department was about to come in and say, like, guys, there are too many people in this room. They closed the room because it was overbooked. And what people don't realize about conferences like these is there are over 100 speakers,
Yeah, and you
and
gotta
there are
choose.
a lot of sessions. So they toned it down a bit this year because it's the first conference, physical conference in quite some time. And I think this conference in size equaled the conference that I went to in 2014. But the rooms in 2014 were much smaller because it was still in the Hyatt. So it was much smaller rooms. And when you have like so many sessions, you get overwhelmed because all of a sudden you have 5 to 8 different sessions happening simultaneously that you all want to go to, and you have to navigate yourself to that. And I think what helps when the conference is a little bit smaller, because we usually talk about 4 to 6 thousand people physically. This was 2,000 physically, 1,000 attending online because they were not comfortable with flying in yet, or they just wanted to experience like an online conference. And it's a lot of people. So navigating not only from a participation standpoint, navigating to all these sessions, and then from organization standpoint, making sure that everything runs smoothly, it makes it a fun challenge. But they all why I got to this point is they do a very good job of finding new speakers and finding new topics, because you need new speakers every year and they need new topics, even though like a small core of speakers comes back every year, and they always deliver, and that's why they come back every year.
What
And
were some of the speakers, one like
yeah,
that you were new, first time at the conference, and some of
yeah.
the topics that were like, I guess, surprisingly high in demand, or like not the usual topic this year?
Well, I firstly want to say I counted 5 Web3 metaverse NFT related topics.
Okay,
So that's the first
that's
thing I
one.
want to say.
Five
I
out
think
of like
that's
how many, like 100
okay. So I have
speakers,
to
100.
find back the landing page for 2022, or I should go to the recordings page. Maybe that's easier, um, because I think they removed all the things from. So that will gonna is gonna take a while. So I'm hopefully going to be able to find some kind of old landing page or old navigation page, because they're already promoting 2023.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's another thing. I mean, like if there's a golden standard for where we want to get to when it comes to events, it's what social media marketing does. Social media marketing world does. They promote next year's event on
immediately
this
after,
year's
or
event,
on the event itself. Yeah.
on the
Okay.
event itself, and that's like it's next level. It's really next level. Um, Content wise, because I don't attend a lot of sessions, I mainly look at the topics and then I have to look at the recordings afterwards. But the two things that really stood out were the NFT part. Four specifically had NFT in their name, and one was definitely about the metaverse, and they were interconnected. And everybody that attended got an actual NFT, not just a POAP, but just a commemorative NFT as well. So if you go to like OpenSea, you will see that over 1,000 people. I don't think everybody claimed it, but over at least over 1,000 people have gotten a social media marketing world NFT. So I think that's a
That's
very
still a lot if you look at the attendees that
yeah,
were
yeah.
there.
But that means that it really struck them. They were really like, "Oh, we have to do this." And then Brian Fanso is really cool speaker as well. Has spoken a lot of times. Has his own. Gave away an NFT during his talk. He has his own coin on Rally. Mark Schaefer. Mark Schaefer, which is one of my favorite speakers as well. He has his own coin on Rally, so they have tokens or coins as well as and they are their own tokens, and these are just for the tokenomics. They want to understand how it works, so they invest in a token to make sure that they have a grasp of the things that they're talking about. They're actually doing. So
So
that's really cool.
that's interesting. So if I'm getting this right, they're actually just getting their hands dirty in the space
Oh yeah,
just to understand, and it's not like, hey, buy my coin or something.
no, 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 no,
It's
no.
just to understand the mechanics on,
They're
is
just
it
giving it
actually,
away.
yeah, okay.
So they don't mind investing money to give money away for free to others just to understand how it works. So it's a very different perspective than to like pump and dumps kind of things like that. And and I'm sure there's another speaker who's pretty big, who actually is one of the biggest on Rally. So now I got really interested in seeing um, into seeing like who is the biggest at the moment,
Okay,
because
so
that's a yeah.
yeah, so we got around 5 out of the 100 speakers in that subject. Anything else, like from a traditional space, maybe that kind of shifted drastically, or
So I think another really interesting topic is organic reach.
organic reach? Okay, this might be an
Yeah,
interesting.
I think that was what stuck out for me was like, wait a minute, that's something that like especially if you're Facebook oriented. When you're Facebook oriented, you're like, yeah, organic is dead. You know,
So,
it's yeah.
just to sidetrack for a second, what were your thoughts? I'm not sure if you've seen the news yet that Elon Musk
Oh,
bought
that's so. That was a
uh,
very shady move by Elon.
like 9% shares on not Facebook,
No, it
Twitter.
was. I responded. Let's be clear. I responded to Elon Musk's tweet because Elon Musk was putting out tweets on questioning like several topics on how Twitter works. And one of the topics he touched upon was a freedom of speech. And I know that Vitalik, so to understand, Vitalik is the founder of Ethereum. Vitalik talks about Hive quite often. He also follows Hive, like the Hive blocks, the main
Yeah,
Twitter
yeah.
account. Like from a couple of hundred accounts that he follows, that's one of the accounts that he follows, and he uses Hive as a use case to say like what true decentralization, not necessarily true decentralization looks like, but what decentralization looks like.
Like,
So I tweeted out to Vitalik saying like, hey Vitalik, can you talk to Elon about Hive and about decentralization. And I know that Vitalik openly spoke about it on a podcast where Nafal was also a guest. So I know Nafal knows about it as well. I know Vitalik has mentioned it multiple times. So there are several ways, and I also tweeted about it in actually today's Hive chat. I think today was the 90th Hive chat. That means for 90 weeks
weeks.
straight, for
It's
90 weeks straight,
almost 2 years now.
we've had a Twitter chat, a tweet chat for Hive, which is pretty damn cool. Um, but I also tweeted about it because before Elon did what he did, Jack Dorsey did the same thing. But here's the difference. And this is why it's kind of shady. And not shady, I'm not calling out Elon necessarily, but it's weird. Jack Dorsey started mentioning the freedom of speech and the decentralized social media and then left Twitter.
Yeah,
Elon started the same kind of conversation and then bought a 9% stake in Twitter, which is, it's almost like you're talking Twitter down so you can actually purchase and you don't get a crazy spike because somebody heard like, oh, Elon's gonna buy. Let's buy.
yeah,
So it's
and
almost like he kind of downplayed Twitter just to buy, and it not necessarily had an impact on the price going down when he downplayed it, but when people heard that he bought,
it went
the
up.
stock
It
just
spiked.
skyrocketed.
And
Yeah.
just for perspective, like 9% from for an individual shareholder in Twitter is a
It's
lot.
a lot.
Even Jack Dorsey, the had only I think a 2.5% share, and he was the co-founder of Twitter. So yeah,
Yeah, I don't know, and that's the one reason. So when Elon buys Twitter, Doge gets an immediate spike. That's the counter interactive kind of mechanic that it has as well.
I actually didn't check the if there are market movement in that, but
Dogecoin actually was trending today, and I'm pretty sure
yeah, yeah,
related
it's
to
correlated. It's correlated.
it's correlated to Elon buying a bigger stake in Twitter. So these are kind of the things that I'm like, eh. But to get back to the
Yeah, the organic
before we
reach
got
part.
sidetracked, the organic reach part is a very interesting perspective. I spoke about tribes and tribalism 2 years ago during the social media conference, and I think it's one of the most underestimated parts of anything, of maintaining a business or building a brand. It's really the tribe. It's really building a community that relates with you, works together with you, is on an equal level. I think that's one of the more important things that wasn't the case, in the textbook 80s textbook management style. There was like the manager or the owner, and there was a higher up, and there was a hierarchy. And now it's more like, when you have these communities, you have people in the communities that are actually more skilled, more knowledgeable, but they accept that somebody else runs the community because they don't want to run the community. And basically that's also something uh, with online brands, both individual brands and corporate brands. um, if you want to relate, if you are relatable, if you like the product, the brand, or the person, you will be part of that tribe. And the better you're facilitating the tribe, the bigger the tribe becomes, and it kind of snowballs. Kind of like, and we can talk about this because we are part of a tribe. Even if I don't feel like, yeah, I'm saying like I'm a very big part of that tribe. I'm part of the Gary Vaynerchuk tribe, in the sense that I own book game tokens, in the sense that we're involved with free friends, we're in the Discord. So basically, that's the idea. And when you have that kind of tribe, all of a sudden advertising is no longer necessary.
So let me posit this question: and how relevant one is paid advertisement predominantly through Facebook and Instagram? Yeah, still relevant internationally, and how relevant or how far are we here locally? Do you see that now?
It's all about what kind of value do you provide. That's what it's all about. Do you have leverage as a brand, either as a corporate brand or as a personal brand? Do you really have leverage? How much leverage do you have? What kind of leverage do you have? What kind of value do you provide to your so-called community? Do you actually provide value for them or not?
Then I want to ask a different question here. We talk about audience reach. You have these Facebook metrics, and a discussion that comes up more. I don't know if this is something that's been brought up during your conference. Is the difference between an audience and a community? So is that something that has been touched on at all?
Listen, I haven't listened or watched the recordings, so I cannot jump into that. How much is relevant is ads? Here's the thing about ads and why you need ads, especially from a corporate perspective. So if you just look at, I want to do a Surinamese case study because that's the community I kind of know best. If you look at the biggest influencers and the biggest content creators who do this organically, they don't advertise. They're really, really consistent in their posting. Like, I always want to make fun of my friend Czech, who has been on this podcast, and actually I think he also spoke about this, on getting up at a certain time during the night to post something, because it's like these good morning tweets, right? And he posts something. He used to post something. I don't know if he still does it, but at least for a year, he posted something every day at 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning. Like
Oh wow.
really insane. It was kind of an inside joke, but and that's the fun thing is that everybody that was online at that point always responded. So if you were like laid up at night and you were like, yeah,
Yeah, because
it's
there's no other
yeah,
noise, so you get the full attention.
basically he gets the full attention because he's the only post kind of being posted at that time in the morning. So it's a very interesting perspective, but also like other influencers that are content creators that post like 10 to 20 times a day. So if you post 10 to 20 times a day, at a certain point you start realizing what kind of posts work and what kind of posts don't work. And when you post 10 to 20 times a day, you don't need advertising. But when you only have the resources to post once a week and you want to get the same kind of exposure as others get for posting daily, you're going to have to advertise. So for a brand, and understand for a brand, it's harder to post content because it has to go through approval process. And the bigger the brand is, the more
Rigid the
restrictions you have.
system.
Yeah, the more restrictions you have. And it doesn't mean necessarily that it takes longer. You have some big brands that are very smooth, their operation is effective, and they get the post out. You make it in the morning and you get it out by the by the same day, but you can't do that every day. So you need a real process where the content is kind of being like processed through different stages, through different approvals until it gets out. And when you have that, you don't get to post 10 times a day. So if you cannot get your organic reach that way, you kind of have to go towards the advertising route. And that's kind of where Facebook makes its money. Facebook makes its money through these kind of companies that have to advertise to be seen. Because if all companies were able to bring out quality content every day, 3 times a day, nobody would advertise.
True, and that's the leverage we're talking about. But that doesn't really. I definitely think we won't go in depth now, but as a suggestion, maybe this is something for a topic to be addressed in the
Oh, I think Doreen is gonna take. Doreen loves
yeah
this topic, so
the
I
the,
think
the audience
Doreen.
versus community part, and especially
Yeah.
corporate versus
So Doreen has spoken only digitally this year. Or if she comes, it will be the first time it's physically. And Doreen has spoken about agilifying, which is something that a lot of people only understand if you work agile and you understand what lean and agile is about. But it's kind of smoothing the process. And then the first year she spoke about strategy. So I think this year she's definitely going to speak about organic because organic is one of her favorite topics to talk about. And I think organic, we have to let go of only Facebook because you have LinkedIn, you have Twitter, you have TikTok, you have YouTube. And yeah, YouTube is definitely something I want to talk about today because I really had a big milestone personally for myself.
yeah, sure. Let's shift to that immediately. What happened on YouTube? And just quickly, is YouTube still underrated or overrated?
Oh, yeah. So D-Rock said it was underrated, which kind of made me appreciate YouTube a little bit more. Um, I think YouTube monetization, it's properly rated. YouTube as a platform is still heavily underrated.
YouTube
But
as a search engine.
yeah, as a platform, just
Yeah.
as a platform, it's hugely YouTube as a search engine. And I realized this the last week and a half. I started getting more creative with YouTube titles, and I can only partly uh devote the success to that, but it definitely helps. And just going to like through the statistics and how much traffics on my videos comes in now from browse features, including search, is interesting. And but another thing, and here you get back to the organic part and being consistent. One of the main things, the reasons why my YouTube is gradually growing and it's growing a little bit faster than it was a couple of months ago, is because consistency and posting multiple times a week. And when you post multiple times a week, especially if you're a smaller channel, you get more exposure from YouTube, and they will put you on the first page of your recent subscribers. And if your recent subscribers see you on your first page, on their first page, and they click on you on multiple occasions, you will stay there.
Yeah, it bumps up the algorithm.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the biggest improvements that we've had. And I hit 1,000 subscribers. I already hit 8,000 watch hours like a couple of weeks ago, and I just hit 1,000 subscribers as well.
What's the minimum requirements now to qualify for monetization?
I think I
Like
just named them, but I'm not sure.
it was 1,000 subscribers, right? That
Yeah,
was
there
one.
is the subscribers. I'm not sure uh, monetization requirements 2022. I'm quickly gonna have a look. So you need 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time. And I'm actually already at 8,000 hours of watch time.
Okay, so
So
you
that
check the
what
boxes.
so I checked that box already, and then the 1K subscribers. So basically, I can
And
kind of
I guess the
yeah.
other question that people usually locally have is like the restrictions, the country restrictions. Is that still a thing
Yeah, it's
or
still a thing. Yeah, it's still a
still
thing.
a thing?
If
Okay.
yeah, Suriname is kind of like not seen as a country at any point, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to say the things the way they are. Like uh, people at YouTube, this is just. I don't know where the switch came from Spotify. That Spotify was like, okay, yeah, let's open up Spotify for Suriname. But if YouTube could do that, that would be just great.
Yeah, it's still something, because a lot of platforms, when you scroll through that list, you see like Sudan and then Switzerland. Wait, where
Yeah,
is the
where
in
Suriname?
between?
Yeah. So Pinterest, as last time I checked, didn't have Suriname listed. YouTube doesn't have Suriname listed.
Yeah, so
TikTok
basically,
doesn't have Suriname listed. Snapchat doesn't have Suriname listed.
I
So
did
only
the
LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, and Instagram.
yeah.
LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Those have Suriname linked as a country.
Just thinking about this now, I did I think I sent you the screenshot yesterday or this morning, the Notion certification. So I had to apply like online, where are you from? So I'm scrolling through that list. And as you said, it's not there. So you have the other option. So select it other,
Wow,
put
you're
it the
at
name.
other.
Yeah. So hopefully, because I got invited to the special Notion workspace for the certified people. Like I think there's like 300 or 400 people in there now. So hopefully someone sees it and adjust
Well,
the
this
drop
this is
down.
how it goes, Diego. I think that's another thing that we want to discuss because you recently got featured because you're working together with Rajiv on Silicon Darp, and Rajiv loves to talk about branding Suriname. And here's the interesting thing: it's also kind of our duty in our respective fields, and this goes for everybody that represents Suriname outside of Suriname. You're kind of an and I'm not allowed to use the word ambassador. I'm not allowed to put it in my profile because I had this discussion with actual diplomats who are actually ambassadors. So
Yeah.
I've been kind of I've removed the Suriname ambassador. It might still pop up somewhere where I forgot to change it, but I'm very wary of not putting Suriname ambassador anymore in any official or yeah formal kind of profile. And but you are an ambassador. You are in this case the person that's making the rest of the world knowledgeable that Suriname exists.
Yeah, and it's like whenever I mention it in the communities I'm active in, like, oh, I immediately get some DMs. So this scarcity and unknowingness is actually leverage to get a
Oh, this
conversation
this
started.
totally brings you to is it David and Goliath or is it whew, I've read too many Malcolm Gladwell books. I think no, it's
But
actually mentioned
outliers?
in Outliers. I think it's mentioned in Outliers. It's the big fish small pond versus small fish big pond kind of
Yeah, that's a
situation.
reference from Outliers, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
and the thing he talks about is that um, the number one at a smaller college has sometimes better opportunities than the number five at a big college. Like
Yeah,
it's more the number five at a
statistically
big college.
speaking,
The number
depending
five as
on
a
the
big college probably is more recognized in some regard or is more has more status. But the number one in a smaller college gets grants and opportunities that that number five cannot get. So it's about opportunities that you get, and uh,
that's
yeah,
leverage.
that's leverage.
We've
Yeah.
talked about leverage a lot in social media and reach, and basically it's you gotta take advantage of the situation you're in. So
Yeah,
except
I have a hard time with that. I'm learning how to do that, but I don't. I'm not necessarily a humble person. That's definitely not how I would describe myself. But on the other hand, I don't have the urge, and that's something I do have to change because I realize that it comes with the responsibility,
the
but it's
responsibility of
of putting yourself out there, the responsibility of with great power comes great responsibility, the famous Spider-Man quote. Um, it does, and that's also one of the reasons why um, at this point in my life, and I think we've discussed this, like, do you want to be the chair? Do you want to be the president? Do you want to be the CEO?
oh
What drives you to do those kind
yeah,
of things? And we're getting in this weird situation where we have like a generation of people that are really good at what they do, but they have no intention of being the one in charge. Whereas you have people who
that's like
have every intention
the
of being in
paradox, right?
charge,
Uh,
every intention of being in charge, but they're actually not really that qualified to do the job. And that's kind of the dilemma that a lot of companies, a lot of nations face now on so many different levels, and it's becoming so apparent that it's kind of overshadowing leaders that are actually doing a good job. So the narrative of people who are so hungry for power and money kind of trying to dominate and making it impossible to create innovation, to create sustainable development is kind of starting to overshadow like leaders that are actually doing a pretty damn good job.
that's the paradox. And before we go too much into that capitalism and all that, um, let's change of gears a bit. Let's talk about the next few weeks. As you mentioned in the beginning, there are gonna be some changes coming to the format and what people can expect. So for the next few weeks, basically, we're gonna have uh, we're gonna have the regular 9 p.m. Surinamese programming for the next month, and kind of more like focus sessions. They're not gonna be live. It's gonna be like
Well,
we're
it's
gonna
gonna
go.
be alive.
It's gonna be live, but not. Uh, yeah, I think you can explain it a bit better. uh,
So basically, what we would really love to hear, if you're like a long time listener of the Social Confoes podcast, I think what's really interesting is that we have done over 60 episodes, and we really want to hear a little bit about what's your favorite episode and why. And the thing that we've been doing consistently was I wouldn't so I wouldn't necessarily say document over create because it's still creation, but we haven't actually done a job on kind of getting the gems out of these 60 plus sessions out there.
yeah,
So
we
we
basically
haven't
have a huge
created micro
archive now.
content. We haven't put ideas out that were discussed on this podcast, which we should really do. And we also didn't have a plan for how to properly approach that and what we would do with that. And I think the next 4 weeks will give us an opportunity on one hand to figure that out, and on the second hand give you guys an opportunity to relive the past 1.5 year. So that's the idea.
Yeah, and basically, for people regularly tuning in, you may have heard of it, but it's also an opportunity to say, "Hey, I didn't even know when we just started. We just had a few a small group of people, and I think some of the topics we touched on at the beginning were pretty damn good episodes. Also, before we shifted to the more hype stuff that's going on recently."
Yeah. Yeah, so we gradually changed gears with the podcast, and we're fairly well aware of that. But it's hard not to talk about things that are coming. I know for a lot of people it's still so far out, but it's kind of hard not to talk about the trending topics. And I guess there's also some really good micro content in there. Sessions with Jeremy, session with e-podcaster with Jennifer. There's so many like quality explanations into stuff that if we tell it, it might be like, okay, this is, but hearing it from somebody else might be interesting. It's like, oh, wait, I need to invest more time in that. And here's the funny thing, Diego. I also think in a country when you're in distress, um, you don't get the opportunity to really think about these things and take a step back and like, okay, where are we heading with this? And and
No, I definitely agree. It's
yeah.
fight or flight sometimes. And for us, I guess we got fortunate. It's like, uh, as Dirk mentioned, that there's some kind of serendipity that's at work because you put in the hours, because you put in the work. You cross that path at the right time, at the right moment.
Or
I've
you
known,
don't and you learn from it.
or you don't. But I've seen also many other people, who walk the same, almost similar path, but the timing was just off, and they had a total different experience, and like, brush this Web3 NFT crypto topic off completely, and others who just stuck with it.
It's also intent, Diego, and also like you can't force people to do
Yeah.
something they don't like. And I think that's something that we are becoming more aware of in life as we go.
Well,
It,
I
I
won't
mean,
necessarily
yeah,
force them to do something they don't like. I think there should be more emphasis on curiosity. Ananta said it best. Like, uh, you have to be curious on, maybe it's for you, maybe not. But if things are happening,
I had a discussion with well, not a discussion, what a couple of tweets with Roberto Blake about this, and it was based on a tweet that he sent out. Roberto Blake is a very good uh, YouTube content creator who talks a lot about creative entrepreneurship and how you can get the most out of your YouTube channel. That's how he kind of started, but he's also giving quality advice to people. And he posted something, and I quickly want to jump into this because for me it was a kind of a really uh, interesting discussion, and I really have to search back for it because he tweets out quite a lot.
so speaking of that, the
Yeah.
reason I'm smiling right now, I actually just got a text or a message from Jafinci, and I connected him like a few days ago with Bo. I said they should meet up in
Oh.
NFC in
Oh.
Portugal, and he just sent me a photo, a selfie of both of them. So they actually
Oh.
met up.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's another way serendipity works.
Awesome. Awesome. That's just awesome. Uh,
Yeah, but the point you're making, sorry to sidetrack
yeah, I
there.
just know I really have to. I really have to find out if I can find that tweet back.
Mm, okay, while you search the tweet,
Yeah.
so the discussion was around that. I lost track. Remind me for a second.
I'm still searching for that tweet, man. And I'm gonna stop searching in a bit because I'm not gonna find it. It has been buried.
How
I might be able to find it easier through my profile.
let me ask, how often do you tweet nowadays? Like, what's the frequency? Are you
Okay,
more
so
like a
here's
consumer?
so I basically went off social media for a little bit too long, to be completely honest. And there's several reasons for that because I had to really figure out what I use social media for. And I also had to figure out which channel I wanted to use for what, if that makes
Yeah, I
any
think
sense.
we've established that kind of a bit like Twitter has a narrow focus, Facebook has a more narrow focus now.
Yeah, I have to, for instance, my Twitter handle, I have to change my Twitter handle. I have to, on my Twitter handle, openly say that I'm a Top Shot collector, openly support Hive, all those kind of things that I really talk about on Twitter, which I haven't done. I have this generic introduction that's on all my socials, which is all the same, which was kind of Guy Kawasaki's idea because Guy Kawasaki says you should talk about every channel about anything you want. But for me, really, there's a big difference between Facebook and YouTube, and because I want to go more into Dutch content, um, and compared to and Dutch Surinamese content, not Dutch content, but Surinamese Dutch content, and keep LinkedIn and Twitter kind of more as my active English content, and that means that it's different content. And what I also had to learn is that shouldn't make extra content. There's already content. There's already social confos. So why should I go out and make additional content when there's already videos talking about things that I believe in? Why should I put out extra content if I actually am writing a book? So these are kind of things that I started pondering about, and I have started to change my schedule. I spoke with our executive assistant about it, making sure that we plan in the week in a way that I can kind of work more towards my goals. And of course, that's not going to work short term wise, but long term, it has to gradually change. And I think we've kind of started figuring it out. And that's why the 1K subscribers on YouTube is such a big deal because it's something 2 years ago I kind of had given up on, or I was like, yeah, I'll get
Mm,
there someday. And now in the past months, and it has really started to grow
like it
because
exponentially growth.
yeah, because I figured out, okay, this is what I want to do with YouTube. I don't have to worry about anymore to kind of diversify YouTube because it has a single use now. It's kind of a niche now. And that's okay, but it took a while for me to accept it. And then the most difficult part is what I have now, with which we discussed on Sunday, I think, on what to do with Facebook, how to use your profile, how to use your page. What do you want to use the tool for? You're not going to put the same content, but where are you going to focus? This stream is being streamed towards both my Facebook page and my profile. Should it just be streamed to one of them?
Yeah,
These are
yeah.
kind of discussions that you're going to have with yourself, and these take quite some time because there's no one right answer that always works. So I found the story with Roberto Blake,
All right.
and
Let's hear it.
he says people tend to underestimate their abilities to address basic things every day, and somehow overestimate their ability to change the big picture, which is completely true, by the way. Like there are like basic things that people can do
Mm-hmm.
every day, and they underestimate those things, and then somehow they
Yes.
overestimate their ability to change the big picture. So this is very it's a very hard, very big feedback tweet. And I replied saying like, can you really blame us though? As in saying like, isn't that the world where we live in? Isn't kind of this uh, 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 a
How
result
society like
a result of a society that lost control? And I'll elaborate a little bit on that. But he replied saying, yes, like, yes, you can actually blame us. And I said, like, well, yeah, we can make people aware of this, which he's doing, and that's why I thanked him for it. But then when people get ceremoniously rewarded for unsuccessfully trying to change the big picture, and we fail to properly teach basic life skills to our community, this is what we get. And that's currently what's happening. So, first of all, we're not teaching the basic stuff that people are underestimating. We're not teaching those things anymore to our community, to our children, to the youth. We're just not. And even if we're doing it, we're not doing it in a proper way that they understand the importance of it. Otherwise, they wouldn't underestimate it.
What's one thing that's being heavily underestimated
One thing that's
locally
heavily being
in our society?
underestimated is patience. It's really being underestimated. One thing that's being really underestimated is empathy.
Are you going through the 12
No,
and a
no, no,
half?
no, 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 no.
No.
It just happens that these two are really things
Yeah,
that
yeah,
very
yeah.
few
No,
Chap talks about.
it's
But
just
but
kind of
these,
funny that you mentioned those
yeah,
two specifically as
but
your,
those two
but
are
agreed.
for me are really things that like people are more concerned with getting there that they are right or that they are not wrong versus understanding what the other person is trying to say. And even in situations where multiple people are saying to the person, but listen, the other person is trying to tell you something, they don't budge. And it doesn't mean that they have to budge and have to believe in what the other person is saying. Because on the other side, you will also have people from the other side saying, like, yeah, but that person is right as well. And we don't take the time to kind of get to a collective. It's really hard to work together at a certain point, especially if you have people with a strong opinion or a strong personality that don't feel the necessity to work together. Either they really believe they're right, or they think it's going to take too much time and it's going to be exhausting. And in some cases, they're even right. And for me, it's sometimes as well that I don't engage in a conversation anymore because I know where it's leading and I
Mm.
know won't be a result from it. And that's kind of how you build because in the past, you would tell somebody, like, hey, you might be underestimating this. But now you're like, listen, I'm not going to tell that person that that person is underestimating. They have to find out for themselves. Or I'm not going to do it because I'm going to get feedback and I'm going to get attacked because that person will feel attacked for me saying that. And then the second part that I mentioned is like the first thing that I mentioned is that people are getting ceremoniously rewarded for unsuccessfully trying to change the big picture. And this is what happens every time. Like people get decorated, people get rewarded for just because they want to do something for good and they're actually the only ones trying and they get decorated for it. Even though in the big picture nothing really
They,
changed.
yeah, they are the ones publicly trying.
Exactly. Exactly. So
It's
it kind
kind
of
of
becomes this ribbon story where everybody gets a ribbon who has really tried and publicly tried and really tried to change the public opinion and really tried to bring change to our society. But in reality, they didn't.
yeah. It sounds. I've actually read again about this idea, more from a business, not business, from a different
Yeah.
perspective. I just finished The Psychology of Money today. Actually, read that book in 3 days. Surprised I finished the book that fast after such a long time.
Wow, that's
Uh,
impressive.
yeah, easy read. Not, I'd say the psychology of money can be applied to a lot of things in life, not just money,
Mm,
but it's, as you said, it's the human behavior skills. It's all about behaviors, and this comes back to uh, habits again, and coming back to your book,
yeah.
writing the book. Uh, so let's pivot back to that. How, because I remember a few years ago, you were already had an idea to start a book. What prompted you to go back into this writing process, and how does it fit in the puzzle that is Jean Luc right now?
It's a difficult question to answer, but it comes down to a couple of things. I think the biggest one is what to write about. If you're going to write a book, Is that a book which is like a personal mission to you? I'm just going to write a book because I want to write a book. Is there a certain topic that you really want to write about? And who are you writing it for? And this trip, the last trip to social media marketing world, kind of put into perspective like where I'm currently at and what I need to do to take the next step. And um, I needed an accountability partner. I first of all needed some motivation and inspiration, and then I needed an accountability partner. And I found both in a time span of 3 hours. And the funny thing is, the social convos 3 weeks ago was in the middle of that 3 hour time span.
The one in your hotel room.
Yes. So that's what happened. So first I had to realize what the book was going to be about and understand that the book was going to be more geared towards the 10,000 goal. So to clarify the 10,000 goal, the 10,000 goal last year was to reach 10,000 in something, in whether it was personal savings, crypto portfolio, Hive Power, getting a platform, a social media platform to 10,000 followers. Um, and eventually it became the crypto portfolio, which I openly talked about last year that I reached that goal. And then I started realizing that what if 10,000 people could get from zero to 10,000? What if you can get 10,000 people to go from zero savings to 10,000 US dollar savings?
Yeah, that's a clear mission with more clarity.
Yeah. And then you start thinking like, how do you approach that? Do you give a free webinars? Do you give a course? And I was kind of pushed off the book idea because I was like, in this day and age, isn't the book like kind of outdated? And then
Nah,
there,
underrated.
and it's so underrated. And it's so underrated at this point that I was like, okay. And it had to be brought into perspective by people that actually have written books and what books mean to them and what books mean to society. And then I started realizing that the seed was planted in my head that maybe a book is not such a bad idea. And once that conspired, I was like, hold on a minute. I really should consider this. And interestingly, I already had set up a meeting for a book meeting with a self-publishing school just to and another, like, things don't happen just for a reason. The book that the Chandler Bolt book that they were giving to people at the conference, I had that the PDF of that book on my desktop on my laptop when I was traveling there. And we jumped into the conversation. And when I told the story of the process that I was going through and what I really needed was an accountability partner, they were like, yeah, but that's actually a pretty good fit. And that's when I started to really ponder the idea of like, should I do this or shouldn't I do this? And then I realized that the accountability for me was the most important part. So the program that they provide is actually a program that if I'm not fully committed, the accountability won't work. Um,
And
but
this is
the
the self-publishing platform, the guide
self-publishing school
of
and their
self-publishing school.
program, of course I'm already enlisted now, their program, they really, if you want to write a book, you're going to write a book. They provide you with everything you need, from group coaching to getting
So there's
things
no
done to,
excuses to
there's no
tap out.
excuse. There is like in the process of writing the book, there's nothing that I can say like, oh, I cannot figure out how to do this, so this is the reason why I'm not writing. So it took away all the excuses basically. And then you
Yeah.
also have, and that's something I enrolled. I enrolled to my first group session for this Thursday, because I want to go through the process to understand how it works. Because there are different group sessions that you can attend to, and I'm gonna the first one I'm gonna try this Thursday, and then I have to start going to the program and the material, and to get a little bit of a head start, I already started writing as well, but I have a commitment now, and this is really important as well, because this is also out of experience. I have a commitment, a 30-day challenge towards myself, but interestingly, this 30-day challenge I'm also doing with my team at Ineffable. And it's to do something every day, like create a habit. And at the moment, creating the habit is for me creating content. So on days that I'm actually putting out YouTube video content, I'm not pushing myself to also put out written content. And when I'm putting out written content, I'm also not pushing myself to put out video content. Because for me right now, committing to both creating video content and creating written content every day is a little too much. But if I can say one or the other, and if it happens to be that I could do both at the same day, I will do it. But there are other things as well. I mean, we run a business, so I have other uh, I
Yeah.
have
Other
other
responsibilities, other.
responsibilities as well.
Yeah.
But the commitment is every day I have to focus on content, whether it's written content or video format.
So we're gonna see the hive blow
Yeah, Hive
mo.
Low Pomo, Hive blog post month. Again, for me, it's not about getting the daily badge that I get like to post every day, but it's definitely at the end of the month. I want to
With a
have at least
consistent cadence. Yeah.
I will have I'm gonna have at least 15 small pieces of the book written, which could either be thrown out because I'm saying
Yeah.
like, okay, it's not relevant, but it's already gonna help
You need to draft it
structure.
out.
It's gonna help
Structure.
structure the first chapter for sure.
I've heard several processes, and I guess as you're starting to write that book, to shift this to our closing section, uh, just for fun, are you gonna implement any book game tokenomics in your launch?
It's not really good to talk about the promo and the launch part while you're still writing the book though. So I've started that
No,
process
that
underway.
was the
Yeah.
my failed attempt at cleverly transitioning to how's your book games going?
No, it's not fully failed because I am considering NFTs as part of the book, but I'm not gonna commit to things that I can't put myself through. I mean, maybe a coin, maybe a
Yeah,
coin.
it's within the realm of
Yeah,
possibilities,
yeah,
but
maybe a
yeah.
coin. An NFT is a little at this moment not on my radar. It's on my radar. The end game, the end game NFT, the biggest NFT project that I want to do is already on my radar. I like to reverse engineer, so I just have to figure out the steps that I'm gonna go towards that. As for book games, I don't know what to say.
How are you gonna play it?
Um, for me personally, I still kind of want to have my original book game token 10 years from now. But if I feel like it's insanely overvalued, there could be a sale. Because if it's insanely overvalued, I feel that I will be able to buy either one or multiple back for it
Yeah,
at a later stage. So for me, I'm not gonna sell and then be like, oh wait, I sold and now it's there. And it will never go back
you
to
put it on
the price
a
that I
price
sold
that you
it
don't
for
think it will reach in a short
anymore.
term, but if
Yeah.
a moment happens,
If there's a
it
moment of
goes.
like, and that's something, and it's really hard. I'm actually, when we're done with this, um, I might still somewhere tonight spend 1 hour transitioning in NFTs from basic NFTs to more rare NFTs, because there are some rare NFTs at the moment that I feel are heavily underpriced. And even though the basic NFTs are not overpriced, I still feel it's better to have one rare in your collection than 25 basics.
What's your contextualization of rare in this context?
A rare is a very low mint count and a more prized possession.
Okay, so low min count, like more on the artistic side, more on the art side, I'd say.
No, but like there are NFTs. Like let's for instance take
Because the
amigos.
rarity is very subjective.
No, but it's based on the mint count and the availability.
I'd say that's rarity, scarcity, because how
Yeah.
rarity
Okay.
is used now in the context of the 10,000 projects is
Yeah.
kind of like attributes to that. So that's why I
That's one
say
thing. So there are two things actually. It's rarity and scarcity. And for me, already scarcity often is enough.
yeah.
Um, to give you an
Scarcity also
example,
means less liquid. It's more illiquid.
yeah. So for instance, say there is a scarcity of there are only less than a dozen available of it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and of the other NFT there are 60,000 available. Would you rather have a rare NFT
Because
that
there,
has a
there's also
circulation of less than a dozen for $60, or would you rather have 30 NFTs that have a circulation of 60,000?
it depends on what your goals are. One, it
Yeah,
depends on what your goals are. But if you're looking at a more liquid volume-based market, I'd go the higher count. And there is still a nuance between the supply. You have NFTs like the Adidas, for example, it's like one NFT, it's not a one of one, it's a collection of 30,000, one NFT basically. And
yeah,
you have something like P Friends, which is you have additions, you have a total supply of 10,000, but within those 10,000, there are like one of ones in rarity. So it is a unique NFT again. So, and then you have the extreme end for from the artist side, usually that is like a one of one art piece, like there's only legit only one of that in circulation. So
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
those
but
are
you
things you
start.
need to
Yeah, but you definitely
take into
start thinking like.
consideration.
Yeah, but you definitely start thinking like, what's your interest? What's your goal? But also, what do you like? Like,
Yeah,
um, for instance, if it's like the one that
for
I'm
flippers
collecting,
traders,
yeah,
high count is more preferable because they're more like short term.
yeah,
For collections, like hey, I like that piece,
yeah,
I like that art piece of Da Vinci. There's only five or there's only two. Hey, I'm gonna get it. But then again, if you're planning to sell, that might not be the smartest move because you'll have to find an interesting buyer. So it's harder to find a match of buyer and seller.
and then you get back to the patience part.
Yeah.
So, and I've learned my lessons, and I think the biggest lesson that I learned was Doge. I think that's the biggest lesson that I was like way too. So for me, I was really excited. I experienced 2017, 2018. So when 2020 hit and we started seeing things rise, I was like, yay! I waited a couple of years for this. And I was very impatient and I just wanted to be sure. And I sold out really early because I didn't know what to expect. Because the time that I joined in 2017 was like at the end of going towards the peak.
Yeah, you kind of immediately felt the
Yeah.
aftershock.
So these are kind of things that I think and that's why I think the experience is so important, that you understand, like, wait, first of all, history kind of repeats itself, but then secondly, history doesn't repeat
Doesn't
itself exactly the way that it did the first time.
it?
So
So it's funny that you mentioned it because that's something mentioned in the psychology of money again. History is not a predictor of future outcomes because you cannot base your judgment on past events because people look too much at the data that they can't, though they don't have the imagination left to, fantasize of what's possible. And then when this unforeseen event happens,
but they're basic market mechanics.
yes,
I'm gonna give you an example of the
yeah,
basic market mechanics. So with book games right now, there's a burning calendar.
yes,
So when you have the burning of a certain token, leading up to that burning, the prices are gonna rise
yeah, because there's a demand.
because there's a demand for them.
Actually, that happened today. Aside from the burning part, the snapshot was today for the friend list.
Yeah,
So, like 5 minutes after the snapshot, the floor went to point 0.2, like 20% of what it was,
yeah. And we're
and
like,
people swept
whoop.
the floor, but it
And then people
regulated again,
sweep, and then when people sweep the floor,
went up again,
it goes up
and then it
again, and
yeah,
then it
and then it
stabilizes at
stabilized in between.
so. And now you cannot predict it goes the same way every time, because that's
No,
where people go wrong. They're like, okay, I figured out this work, and they sweep the floor, and it continues to go down. And they're like, wait, what happened? And
but
they
the thing
panic
is
sell, and then it
that
goes up. So these are
the
kind of
more
things.
players you have, like the more dynamic it becomes because there's gonna be fresh blood, so
There's
to
going to be
speak,
fresh
in
capital.
in the
Yeah,
circulation.
yeah.
So some to a certain degree, it is not all never 100%, but you can,
But if you're patient enough,
yeah.
you can get, yeah. And if you're patient enough and not greedy enough, and this comes back to a very
No, but that's
popular,
why I mentioned it.
yeah.
It comes down to what goals you have at that point.
But do you know that we kind of went through a similar thing 15 years ago?
15 years ago, the reference to 2007, 8
A
was
little,
15 years
maybe
ago.
even a little bit earlier, which was the poker craze. Do you remember the Texas
I
Hold'em poker
am
craze?
I'm actually not familiar with that.
So there was a couple cultural references, one being the movie Rounders, where poker became really popular. And it actually led to a lot of amateur players getting into the World Series of Poker.
I can see that happening, yeah.
And there's a
Because
basic principle with Texas Hold'em. Texas Hold'em is kind of one of the few games you play in a casino where you don't play against the house. You don't play against the casino. So you
yeah,
actually play against other players. And one of the basic rules there is, if you walk in, and this is literally a line from the movie, if you walk in, and if you walk in onto a table, and you can't within 5 minutes, you can't find out who the sucker is, you're the sucker. You're the least qualified person on that table. And within the in that world, there's a lot of ways to kind of make money if you're patient enough, because there will always be people with a lot of money to spend who jump into things and just start spending money. And you, who is more familiar with how the system works, stays in there and slowly chips away some of the money that comes in. But you have to slowly chip away some of the money that comes in. Because when greed takes over, you start becoming less rational, rational about it. So you start having greed. And then whenever the greed kicks in, or you get too complacent or get too relaxed, that's where you lose. And for me with NFT collecting, as soon as I kind of either like, because like it's crypto, so you're like, okay, I have enough of this. I
hype,
can
hype, hype.
hype. I jumped into a hype just because of not thinking it through, but just because of I feel this is like, not even intuitively, because intuition would basically actually stop you from saying like, hey, this feels a little bit over ambiguous. So I think that's a very important thing as well. Not necessarily only the patients, but understanding like you you can get the system always works when taking away small you're taking away small steps because everybody is willing to give you those small wins. But then greed kind of takes over and then people get too hungry, whether it's for power, money, or anything, and that's where they get caught because they're blinded by something, and then when the moment hits, they don't recognize it, and when the moment has passed, they don't recognize it either.
That's a fair assessment. I won't say always, but
No,
patient
definitely
is
not always.
heavily underestimated. But that goes paired to what I mentioned before. Uh, it's paired with your goal, and yeah, your goal might be clouded by the greed for the short-term gains.
Yeah.
That's the most common, yeah, occurrence of these events.
Mm.
But again, you should also know if it's for the long term, you're playing a different game. So basically, you cannot. It's basically comparing apples to oranges because you're playing a different game based on a
Yeah, you're
different
playing a
strategy.
game that you basically can't lose because even if you lose, you don't lose because it's not all monetary value.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think that's something that also plays for a lot of people. And that basically also has to do with your background and where you come from and what for you qualifies as success and also what for you qualifies as happiness.
Yeah.
And I think that's where all of us kind of struggle.
No,
What for you is successful? What for you is happiness?
it's a ever learning journey to that point, and I won't say I forgot how they phrased it, but yeah, it's not a state. Happiness is a moment in time.
Okay.
So it's the I'm jumbling up so many references right now in my head from the different books. So I'm not sure who I'm supposed to quote, but I'm pretty sure there's a scientific reference in Atomic Habits about it as well, where he formulates it beautifully. But it is about the learning process, the journey, because at a certain point, you'll reach that goal. And then, what then after you reach that goal? You move the goalpost or not? Or how do you expand with defining what happiness or
Is
that
it part of your
independence or freedom?
personality?
Yeah.
That's I think is the biggest question. Do you want it to be part of your personality or do you use it for other reasons?
I don't think someone could be continuously happy because with the absence of sadness, there can be no happiness. You need that contrast.
Yeah, but it this is gonna go
But
way
let's not go
philosophical.
philosophical. Let's
It's
not go
gonna go way
philosophical. Let's
philosophical.
cut it there. Yeah, you're playing the long game with book games. That's a fair point.
Yeah,
And
I'm
if it
taking a
sells,
law
it sells.
game, but also if there is like somebody to wanting to spend 2 Ethereum, I'm not gonna be like, no, you can't have it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
put it on there. I
yeah,
think who was it? Steve Aoki when he bought his first board ape or punk was it? He listed it like three times the floor price then, and within a week it was still gone.
yeah.
And he was
So,
like,
but
"What?"
here's the thing. Yeah, but here's the thing as well. If the floor price goes up to 1 ETH, I'm removing it.
But
Yeah, but it's that simple. So
that's the reverse psychology. But then you need to keep
that's
track
yeah.
of it.
Yeah. So,
Um,
but if it happens, if somebody buys it at the current listing price, I won't be bothered by it because I
yeah.
feel that it's fair. Yeah, it's a fair
All right.
price.
Unfortunate. You didn't get through the selection, so now you don't need to worry. It's basically a stress remove about.
Oh
Uh,
no, I wasn't. I'm so happy that I canceled half of my trips for this half year because 4 trips I would have nah. I think I would be out of a job. Yeah, and I'm the owner of the company. I think my partners would kick me out of my job.
Like
They would
you're
be
not
like,
even at
"Sorry,
work for eight
but if you're
months.
not at work, we don't really need you anymore." So yeah.
But isn't that the goal in the end, to have a self-running?
No, I mean from that perspective, yes, but you cannot like, and I think if that's the last thing that we're going to talk about, I think that's one of the things that is being underestimated in the current workforce. It's like if you're a leader, if you're a owner of a company, if you're a CEO or in any management or high staff position, you can't expect people to watch you and not contribute anything to the company and then expect them to work their butts off to take it to the next level. I mean, it's not fair.
Yeah, let's end it there.
And no, but like one thing I do have to say, like, of course, in some cases they won't be able to recognize what you bring to the company. That could be the case
Mm.
because there's a difference between the level of task and the work that you have to do
Yeah, so
when
I
you
wanted to
start
make
off.
that point,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to go into another rabbit
No,
hole,
no,
which is why
but
I.
it's yeah, but
But
still, you do understand the other point as well. Like,
yeah, I
yeah,
understand the reasonability behind
yeah,
it, and setting it goes paired with the
yeah,
projection of and an image that goes paired with the responsibility and accountability.
yeah. And if you're like a completely a business owner, there's nothing wrong with that. Like if you've set up a business, you're only a shareholder, you're no longer active in any position within the company. You're just a shareholder. Either you're part of the board of directors or you're just a shareholder, a silent partner, but you
Like
don't
nine
have like
percent in a stake in
you
Twitter.
don't get any yeah, you don't get any salary from working there, then it's totally different. Then you're just a business owner, a shareholder. It's something completely different than having a position within the company, actually working for the company as well.
Cool. I think that's a good place to leave it at. Before, because we touched on many topics that we barely scratched the surface on,
Yeah,
and today was supposed to be a pretty lighthearted episode. Some recap. We've laid out the plan for the next few weeks, so you guys know what to expect. And in next month, we'll be back full steam with a lineup of interesting people. So stay tuned.
awesome.
No over unders today. We'll just
No
close it
over
on out.
unders today. And like we mentioned, we will be back next week. Same place, same time. This was Social Confoes. Bye bye.
See ya.